You Would Think, the Philadelphia Flyers podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Collington. It almost feels like Christmas Eve. The season starts on Wednesday. We're here to talk about it. Joining me today, it's the one, it's the only, it's Mr. Kevin Durso. How are you, bud?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. You have that Christmas Eve feeling too, right?
Yeah, sure, of course.
You know, season starts in a couple of days. It starts with the Flyers-Penguins game, hopefully, fingers crossed. And it's just good to be here. It's good to be back weekly. All right, it's only been a week since our last episode, 101. It's good to be back. This is episode number 102, which is weird. I know I said that last week too, but it's just weird being in triple digits. I'm not going to lie. But
yeah, I can understand that. And, you know, the weekly thing helps because it feels like there wasn't as much. I mean, this is the week of training camp. So obviously there's a lot going on, but
we're going to get into right here off the top.
Sure. But it feels like there's less to talk about this time with the 2 week gaps than there is now that we're back weekly. So it's good to be back weekly.
Absolutely. And we're just going to dive right into training camp. And last week, we talked about the fact that the Flyers had acquired a left winger in Sam Moran. Well, in a very similar fashion, it certainly seems as though the Flyers have acquired their third line center. By all accounts, I have not been at practice myself, but by all accounts I have read and heard appear to say that Nolan Patrick looks ready to go. And that's encouraging news. Kevin, what have you heard here?
Pretty much the same. And I mean, this was the big question to start out the whole training camp, right? Was who's going to be available? How's this going to look? And mainly his status, right? I think mainly his status was the biggest question.
Probably the single biggest question around this team.
Yeah, I would say so. And, you know, I mean, other than in terms of roster construction, you're right. It's the biggest question surrounding the team. Everything else would be, we know who the guys are, but how are they going to look and how is it going to work together? Right. But that's not the same thing, you know? So, I kind of already hinted at it earlier. I'd written about it that between Nolan Patrick and Oscar Lindblom, this could be your offseason in a nutshell. This could be your offseason additions right here. And I think here's the thing. They could be the two biggest offseason additions. But, you know, the fact that they've both been here from day one, you know, Nolan Patrick is cleared. And not only that, but here's the thing too. It wasn't just, hey, look, he's on the ice. Alain Vigneault said the words that everybody wanted to hear. He's cleared for contact. So he's back.
Own participation.
Yeah, so it seems, right? So the fact that they've both been on the ice every step of the way this week, the fact that they are both preparing with the main group of players, like they don't have them taking side time and figuring some stuff out. They are playing them with guys who you know are going to make this team.
Right, they're not kid gloves. They're not wearing kid. They're not wearing. They don't have training wheels on. They are full blown NHL hockey players.
So, just deducting from that, this tells me that both of these guys are good to go from the very beginning, possibly.
Clean bill of health, and we did kind of expect that out of Oscar Lindblom, right? We talked.
I was just about to say.
Yeah. So the clean bill of health from Oscar isn't necessarily much of a surprise, thankfully, but he does look good. And we've heard that he looks like he's in shape. He's ready to go, and he looks sharp, and he looks like he's ready to join the team as a full-blown roster member on day one, and there's not going to be any much of a learning curve with him.
Right, and like you said, I think we all expected this or felt this for Oscar Lindblom to an extent because I think we had a feeling this was probably going to happen the moment he traveled to the bubble and during the playoffs, the moment he got back on the ice during the playoffs. Then December and January became a possibility for him because of course it did. It's September. He's playing in a game. That wasn't expected 6 months earlier. So he's playing in a game. Why wouldn't he be, assuming he's still got a clean bill of health, why wouldn't he be part of the team in November, December, January, whenever they would have gotten started, as we now know, mid-January, right? Why wouldn't he be part of it? I don't think anybody saw this coming from Nolan Patrick.
No.
In terms of good to go, able to play from the start, looking like he can probably or possibly really contribute and be a huge addition from the start. You know, and again, I still want to pump brakes on this guy. You know, I still worry about his durability because no matter what, you know,
when you're taking you can't stay in shape.
Yeah.
That's the long short of it, right? Like,
no, it's not actually even that. Like, when you know a guy has had a concussion before in the league, and he's also dealt with, now you know he's dealt with the migraine thing for the better part of a year.
life, honestly.
Well, and your life, yes, but like
specifically, this bout of it has been about a year and a half, right?
But when you have that and you play a sport that involves potential head contact, like let's just say he took a hit or collided with Sam Moran during a practice. That was well documented. It was part of, and let's just like I even without physically being at the training camps, it was one of the first questions asked during one of the media availabilities. Hey, how is Nolan after this collision?
I saw memes about it already. Yeah,
right. And the good news is that he popped back up, went to the bench for a little bit, came out, took his next shift during the scrimmage. All seems well, right? But
everything we heard was he appeared completely fine.
And that's good because it's a test. I mean, you wanted to test his physicality, but at the same time, I think it's a friendly.
Put it this way: if Sam Moran doesn't test it in training camp, the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to test it on Wednesday. So
exactly, it's not like it's a secret, right? Like it's not like it's a secret. So that's what I'm worried about because he's one headshot away from possibly not being available again.
Well, sure.
You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that that's going to be intent because believe me, I think that this is a guy for a change compared to maybe other players who will have the official's eye in terms of somebody goes and targets him like that, then the Department of Player Safety is probably responding to it differently than they would the average player, right? Like that, any hit like that, if it does anything, is designed to potentially ruin the guy's career at this stage of the game. And if any player goes out and does that, they might want to prepare for, based on how long this season is, not playing 20% of the season. Possibly.
Yeah, for sure. And you would like to think, that the league has moved beyond dirty, predatory head hits, but Tom Wilson's in the division, so we got to be careful. Let's be real. And Zdeno Chara is in the division on the same team.
Zdeno Chara to me at his age is not the brutal checking guy that he was. I mean, I sense that in his defensive play, like he uses his reach. He's going to be the big body who ties you up in the corner, but I don't think he's going around throwing haymakers anymore.
But he's still 11 feet tall, and his elbow just happens to be at head level. And when
part's true, I will give you that.
Guys finish a check through the chest, and nice clean check. Zdeno Chara is finishing the same check through your jaw, just because he's a foot taller than you. True, so he will always be right on the cusp of bad hits that aren't really his fault, if that makes sense. Tom Wilson, on the other hand, predatory, and I would like Nolan Patrick to stay away from him. But other than that, at a certain point, you kind of just have to let the kid play, and it seems as though we've hit that point.
Right.
And it doesn't seem like they're gonna be. Listen, any NHL player is one head hit away from their career ending, and it's kind of hard to treat Nolan Patrick any differently at this point. If he's cleared for contact, if he's cleared to play, you just got to let him go.
Right, I hear you. And look, here's the thing too. Now that you've gone a full season without this guy, and he's a number 2 pick, and he's got all this hype around him and things like that. At some point in time, his own motivation was going to take over, right? Like he wants to play. It was pretty obvious he wants to play. And now he's got to go out and try to show what he's capable of and doing things like that. I'm sure that, for people who are watching us on YouTube, there's a picture up of Nolan Patrick from camp. And one of the first things that I happen to notice is he's got the tinted shield, so he's doing what he can to protect himself as best he can from the migraines, from everything else. But he continues to say he keeps getting better. I hope that what getting better, by the way, means from this is not just that you're cleared for contact, obviously, and you're playing. I hope what it means is that there's something out there for him that allows him to manage when something comes on. Instead of it being a debilitating pain that he can't get past. I don't know why it hurts. I don't know why I'm so sensitive to light. I don't, what I mean, on this particular day, and I can't speak for what exactly it's like to go through that. I don't experience that. But what I'm saying is that I hope that there is a way now for him to curb those symptoms a little bit, to be able to sit there and feel like even if they do start to pop up, it doesn't knock you out of a game or games for a week. Like if you need to be scratched for a game, you need to be scratched for a game, and that just is what it is. But that you're not a week to week and out indefinitely kind of player again because these symptoms started popping up, and you have a way to maintain yourself and to somehow combat those symptoms in some way. I hope that that's the case.
Sure. And I think with a bit of a condensed schedule this year, I wouldn't be surprised if we see player rotation and maintenance anyway, right? We've already talked on this show a lot about extended rosters and we've talked a lot about those concerns being to COVID restrictions. But the other thing we do want to consider is that in a compressed schedule, teams are going to cycle players in and out, right? You're going to see right now, if you're looking at our YouTube channel, we have the competition for Flyers roster spots graphic, and we're talking about these guys who are going to be on the taxi squad, and we're talking about the Tanner Leschinskis and the Connor Bunnemans, and maybe even probably not Nico Bakubel, but kind of the step below that, these guys that will probably get time this year, even if no Flyer has a positive test all year, knock on wood, even if no Flyer has a positive test all year, these guys will probably still see some time just due to rotation.
Yeah, I mean, let's maybe take this to a different level for a second and talk about some of the most likely line combinations that we've seen from camp. There really hasn't been a ton of consistency.
Oh, and I think we'll see. I think we'll get our first real look at what they're looking at with lines in the scrimmage tonight. And obviously, we're recording this in our normal Sunday morning time slot, and by the time this goes up, the scrimmage will, be being played or be over by the time you listen to it. But I think that's going to be our first real look, and I think you're going to see what the lines might look like based on the lines for tonight's scrimmage.
So here's something interesting, though, to me anyway, and I can understand it to an extent, because you don't want to just load up one side with literally your opening night lineup and then say, oh, by the way, the rest of you can go play on this other. I mean, they don't even have enough players to do that. Right. I mean, you can't say here's the 12 on one side and we're going to put 8 on the other and 4 defensemen and 2 minor league goalies and say have fun. Right. They have to balance it somehow. So
I'm saying you might see teams on either side.
No, but I'm intrigued to see how they try to balance that line combination. Like, here's a good example: considered the home team of this scrimmage. One team will wear orange, one team will wear white. So in the team wearing orange, which is considered the home team, Travis Konechny, Sean Couturier, and Oscar Lindblom are all part of that group. They've also been on the line in practice consistently.
There you go.
That tells me that those 3 are still together as this game happens. Here's another one for you. Claude Giroux, Kevin Hayes, Joel Farabee. They have also been on a line together. They are on the same team.
That's a fun hockey line if that one ends up rolling out on Wednesday night against the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'll tell you that much.
Now let's go to the other side for a minute, because here's just piecing it together. James Van Riemsdyk, Nolan Patrick, Jake Voracek. That has technically been the third line in camp, and they are all on the same team.
I do not hate that.
And then Michael Raffl, Scott Lawton, and Nick Aube-Kubel were the fourth line, and they are also playing on the visiting or road white side.
And hearing you read out those lines, that I have a feeling you just read out the 4 lines that we're going to hear on Wednesday night. I have a feeling you read out something very similar to what we're going to hear on Wednesday.
Sure.
And hearing you roll that out, man, I'm excited about this hockey team, man.
So a couple of other notes really quick, because you mentioned at least one player who I need to address, who you mentioned as a possibility for the taxi squad, who I do need to address because he hasn't been available, for one. And then there's a couple of others that I need to address, and defensemen too, because we do want to bring them into the picture as well. So Tanner Leschinski, at the very beginning of camp, apparently he's recovering from core muscle surgery in the offseason, so he was not able to really participate in training camp. That is an unfortunate setback for him, because I have no doubt that he is going to probably play for this team at some point during the year, but that is a really difficult injury to come back from in a short period of time. I don't know when he had this surgery. I would assume it was closer to when he signed, when he was done. Maybe it was just from a training thing. I don't really know. But the bottom line being, he's not going to be available at the beginning. So he's probably not even on your taxi squad. And I wouldn't be shocked if, just for the rehab sense,
he's going to end up in the AHL, right?
Right. Yeah. So that's one.
And it's, you know what? I don't mind letting him go spend a year in the AHL and get some pro experience under his belt.
Right. Now, so here's a couple more for you. Now, for one, by the way, I heard that, I believe it might have been the Saturday practice. I don't know for sure. There was one of them recently, though. Igor Zamula looked a little bit outmatched, and basically Alain Vigneault said as much. So my guess would be he is not going to be part of this roster or the taxi squad early on. And the good news is that the AHL is pretty much planning to come back February 5th, and I don't remember the last number I saw. I think the Phantoms are going to play something along the lines of 34 games is what it would be, or something like that, which is a good number for
a short season in the AHL.
Not only that, but it's going to happen over the same amount of time that the NHL is playing. So you're going to have, there's crossover there, so they'll be playing. It's going to be good for Igor Zamula to get that time probably. And who knows, if he starts to progress during that part of it, he comes right back. He plays. It could easily happen. Let's keep going with a couple others. So Wade Allison, here's another guy whose name was brought up. He's a college pick that was signed in the offseason. So he's done his college career. He's ready to jump to pro. And as of Saturday, he's unfit to participate. We don't know why. It's mysterious. It's going to be until Wednesday when teams can actually start to give you some concrete information during camp. They cannot tell you why. So hopefully we will have an answer. Hopefully we will find out whether that's injury related or not. But then, so here's the thing. Out of the players that are available, if you ask me, they can have it's 4 to 6 players on your taxi squad. Now, I'm not including a goalie in that because one of the things that could be easier for the Flyers to do than other teams per se is bringing players up, because assuming that there is a quarantine phase that has to happen and so on and so forth. But assuming that your minor league team is still playing an hour away from where you are, it shouldn't require that much to go into it. This is not the same thing as a team that, like they're talking about, there's a handful of teams that play in Canada whose minor league teams are not in Canada, or vice versa.
Here's looking at you, Vancouver.
Kind of.
And Utica, New York comments.
Well, there's going to be mixes anyway. There are 3 of the AHL teams opted out completely, which is an indication to me that we're going to see some mixing of players, and there's guys whose rights will belong. The Phantoms could have a guy then whose rights belong to another team. You know what I mean? Who belong to a Canadian team, somewhere in there. It's possible. I don't, who knows where they're all going to go.
Probably not unlikely.
Right. So if you're keeping, let's just say you're keeping 4 forwards for the group, and I did 6 players, and I didn't factor in a goalie because I assume that they're still going to want Alex Lyon to play in a game. They're going to want Felix Sandstrom to play in games. Kirill Ustimenko was out from the start because he had an off-season surgery, so that was a difference. So they have Roddy Ross here, who's a prospect for the WHL, which, by the way, also has plans to start at some point. So he'd probably just go back to the WHL. Your Phantoms goalies would be Alex Lyon and Felix Sandstrom, and there you go. We move on, right? So let's not go crazy with the goalies. But the 4 forwards I have lined up, aside from Leschinski and Allison, are Morgan Frost, Lena Sandin, Carson Twarynski, and Connor Bunneman. And that's probably, I would say that's a safe order. I mean, if I look at the rest of the rosters for this scrimmage, Bunneman's on it. Max Willman, who played for the Phantoms strictly on an AHL level contract, is on it. But at the same time, he's not really going to make the team. Like, it was pretty obvious, to take that kind of jump, obviously.
For sure.
Tyson Forrester's still participating. That's nice to see. He's at the very least, and again, there's still a lot of clarification going on with this, but the belief is that as long as the OHL does not have a start date, he's allowed to play for the Phantoms, which would be very interesting, to see him get some pro experience in his draft year. Same thing with Zayd Wisdom. He's on the other side. He's on the home side tonight. So this is a first look for Forrester and Wisdom for a lot of fans, which is cool.
There you go.
You will see now. Okay, taxi squad. Also, I forgot to mention one other name because of the fact that I keep kind of forgetting that he is a forward now. So Sam Moran probably falls into that taxi squad as well.
Yep.
So take one of the other guys out. My question would be, does a guy like Bunneman go to the minors then to keep playing and getting regular minutes, or do you keep a guy like Bunneman and say, Morgan Frost, you're going to the minors because I want you playing first line minor league minutes when you're not here?
Well, how much of that is going to depend on waiver eligibility? Like, does Bunneman need to go through waivers?
I don't think so, because I think he's still on his ELC.
Okay, I was going to say, because that might be enough to make
because realistically, the ELC starts ticking when the guy makes the NHL, not the other way around. So he's been a pro for for 2 years now. But his NHL, he's only got parts of one NHL season under his belt, so he's fine. They don't need to worry about Bunneman. They don't need to worry about Twarynski. They don't need to worry about Frost. They don't need to worry about Farabee either.
Well, I mean, Joel Farabee ain't getting.
But Joel Farabee's making the team. I mean, it's pretty obvious. You know?
Sorry, you read off that he's on the. I'm sorry. Check notes. Second line.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think he's getting sent down anytime soon.
So let's talk. So now that we kind of went over that part with Sam Moran included, let's talk defenseman.
Okay.
And by the way, Andy Andrioff is the other forward who I didn't mention, by the way. Now, he very well could be a candidate for taxi squad because he's a vet. And because he doesn't need the regular rotation. You might want to give Morgan Frost, Connor Bunnaman, Carson Twarynski regular minutes in the minor leagues and say, Andy Andrioff doesn't need that kind of time. He can just be a rotating body. Sam Moran will stay with the team, by the way, because of the fact of the waiver thing. Like you said, he would have to keep passing through waivers. So you taxi squad him and say, when we need you, we're just pulling you off of the taxi squad and you're going right back,
Yeah, I expect Andy Andrioff to live at a hotel right by the airport and take the shuttle all the time. He's going to be on the taxi squad.
Now,
sorry, Andy.
Now, here's the other question, though, too. Once the AHL starts, there is a little bit of a question of what happens to the taxi squad in general, because the point was there is no minor league system, so you had to have a place where you could keep guys to practice and continue to be ready for your team. So what happens if everything works out that way? That's all still being worked out because the AHL hasn't completely finalized everything. Like, we don't even know what the Phantom schedule looks like yet completely. We're very few details are coming out about that as they work towards this February mark. And it probably won't be anything, it won't be unlike the NHL in the sense that the NHL kind of had a week and a half until the season started. And we were finding out the schedule 2 days before Christmas.
Yeah.
And here we are 3 weeks later and it's go time, right?
I think you're going to see a more extreme version of what the NHL did in the first month of the season. Flyers play Pittsburgh twice, Buffalo twice, Boston twice, New Jersey twice, and the Islanders twice to start the season. I think you're going to see something very similar in the AHL, but it's going to be 3 games in 3 days on the weekend, all in one city.
Well, here's the thing, too, and definitely very extreme, and I'll tell you why. Very extreme because of the fact that they've broken it down into 5 divisions, where literally one division consists of 3 teams because they're trying to – because this is even more scattered geographically than the NHL is.
The AHL is a mess.
Well, there's not as many Canadian teams. There are a lot of teams that play in that – like you have a big northeastern section. You have a decent-sized Midwest section. And then you have this new formation of teams that was West Coast, but you don't really have a whole lot. Like, you have other teams all over the place that are scattered across the map, and that really makes it kind of interesting. So however this works out with that type of thing, we'll see. But now, okay, let's play taxi squad again with the defenseman now. And here's the biggest story to me. I didn't even really give you the defensive lines that we're expecting, by the way, but let's just kind of read through the cracks here and see if we can't find where some things mesh up. If you asked me right now, as we're sitting here talking today on Sunday morning, who the top pairing is for Wednesday's game against Pittsburgh, I would tell you is Ivan Provorov with Justin Braun. Okay. Now, you can take that for whatever you want it to mean, and you can look at it however you want to in terms of ability and what you expect from the guy and all that type of stuff. This is just me telling you that is who has gotten probably the most time with Provorov. Myers has not. Phil Myers has not. Phil Myers has been kept with Travis Sanheim a lot because they've always said they like that pairing. And then the rest of it has been this big thing. Here's like an example. For a few days, Shane Gostisbehere was playing alongside Ivan Provorov. Very interesting combination considering what we feel about...
I don't hate it.
But considering what we feel about Gostisbehere's defensive ability and then what he can possibly bring when you take the reins off and say, go play some offense.
I don't hate it.
Right? And then all of a sudden, here came Saturday. And now Saturday, he's on the unfit to participate list too.
Yep.
What does that mean? We don't know. What we do know is that not only did both Wade Allison and Shane Gostisbehere not practice on Saturday, they are not in the scrimmage either. So now it's a 2-day thing. Now it continues to build up.
That's a bit bigger.
Right. And this is why, and that's why I said, if you ask me who the top pairing defenseman is with Provorov, it's Braun, because he's gotten the most playing time and at the moment is deemed to be okay. For whatever reason, or not for whatever reason, but I know that there's 2 things that happen. Okay, now first of all, the irony with Gostisbehere is it's literally 2 days before this happened. He comes out, he talks about how he's got a clean bill of health. It's a clean slate. He had a meeting with AV about it, and everything seems good. And now he's not available. Now there are 2 thoughts. One is, well, that lasted for all of 2 days. Now he's hurt. in some capacity, or you go the other direction, at least in this current time, and you go, oh no, here it is. It's a COVID test, right?
Yep.
That's what people would think. I don't think that's the case, though, because I just don't think that in 2 days' time, you wouldn't have more. You know,
and
why is it
the facility's
like,
still open? They're still having practices. They haven't made any moves that make you think that they're worried about positive COVID cases in the building.
I think this is the reason why I say this too. Why is the lineup exactly the same otherwise? Why is there not even one other player who they, you know, to me, they would be listing more guys and say, like, they would be doing what some of these other teams have. And we might as well address this topic. The Dallas Stars have 6 positive tests and 2 staff, 6 players.
Okay. I did also want to mention, it might be worth noting that if we're speculating on Shane Gostisbehere and COVID, it's worth mentioning that his significant other works in a hospital. Just want to throw it out there. There might be some secondary exposure, and you know, obviously, if there are any positive COVID cases involved here,
now it was brought up, but I believe, and I just this is just things I saw floating around Twitter, comments, things like that.
If you read it on Twitter, it has to be.
But I believe she works at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, which is not necessarily, and she's not in an area where she's dealing with COVID patients. That's what
it's probably still worth mentioning. I just wanted to throw it.
And I agree with you, because a lot of people said, is there any possibility that he's just taking some time because he could have been a secondary contact, right?
That's what
because everybody knows that his fiance is a nurse.
Exactly.
You know, like everybody knows that. That being said, I still wonder, you know, how is it that you've been around other people? Like it just seems too suspicious. Like I mentioned the Dallas Stars one where they actually have positive tests. You have other teams. Columbus had a number of players miss a practice due to concerns. And as far as I know, everything is back to the way it should be for them. They returned full roster. The Penguins canceled the practice and scrimmage on Saturday, returned to the ice on Sunday after, I'm assuming, getting tested. The Flyers really detailed. They asked a little bit about, I think Ivan Provorov got asked this on Saturday. What is the process like? And all this stuff. And because apparently Alain Vigneault had mentioned something about how they were going to try to do, because the original plan for Sunday with the scrimmage was 2 group sessions in the morning, which were going to be held at Wells Fargo Center, then leave, come back dressed like you would be to go to a game.
Go home, take your pregame nap, eat your pregame
meal. Do all that stuff, but come back dressed like, do the suit and tie thing, come to a game, and then after you're done coming to you get to the game, we're going to play like a real game. It's going to be 3 periods, 20 minutes. I just read on Twitter they have a full NHL officiating crew doing this game. It's done. It's going to be done as if it were a preseason game.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of teams doing this, and they're a lot of fun to watch. I don't know if you've caught any of them, but I've caught bits and pieces.
I saw a little bit of Toronto's from the other night. That was kind of fun, you know.
And teams seem like they're having fun with it. Tyler Mott and Adam Gaudette fought in the Vancouver scrimmage.
Oh, did they? I did not see that.
Oh, Tyler Mott slew foot Gaudette by the boards, and Gaudette came up and the gloves were off immediately. It was a fun one. 2 young Vancouver prospects over there. But
well, anyway,
either way, I hope Sam Morin doesn't try to fight somebody tonight, because I don't think there's anybody on the roster that I want dropping the gloves with Big Sammy.
Yeah, no, you don't want that. No. So
I've watched his fights in juniors. You can look them
right.
up.
So anywho, let's just continue here with some of the other stuff with this. So the scrimmage, like, it was supposed to be designed that they go and do everything at the center and all of that. Apparently, though, the testing that they do is better suited for the skate zone and Voorhees, where they're doing everything else. They are getting tested every single day, it appears. What they're supposed to do, Provorov said they are waking up in the morning from an app at home. They are supposed to do a symptom check and a temperature check. They get another temperature check when they arrive at the skate zone. And then basically they're there for whatever they need to do at that point in time. They've gone through it. But they're also, at that point in time, they're also getting a test done at some point in time, and they are able to get those results by the end of the night.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me. I don't know that we're going to see anything, crazy with this. Like, it's hard to see how you're going to run into significant issues when you're going to test as often as the Flyers plan to do. It looks like, I can't speak for any other team in the league, how they're doing it. I assume they're all on the same page, but
I'm sure it's all very, very similar.
Well, let's put it this way. It should be.
The NHLPA wouldn't have let them come back if there's not stringent testing.
Well, there's two things too. Like, because let's put it this way. When the Penguins had to cancel their practice on Saturday, their practice and scrimmage on Saturday, even though they were back on Sunday to have a scrimmage and stuff like that, they're going to have a scrimmage in the evening too, just like the Flyers are. They were the fourth team of the week to have something like this come up. Dallas was first. Then you had the Columbus story where they had multiple players sitting out. They didn't cancel practice completely, but they had multiple players sitting out with concerns. Then next thing you know, the LA Kings had 5 players who were unfit to participate with no explanation. Doesn't necessarily mean that's what it is, but you deduct, right? Like you kind of in this day and age, in this time.
We all know how sports teams are coding, hey, we're worried about COVID.
Sure.
PR release.
And then the report came out of Pittsburgh, right? Okay, so that was 4 teams like that. The thing we will not really know is what kind of is around where the players are that they could be doing when they shouldn't be doing. You know what I mean? Like it was, I forget who it was asked to, but maybe it might have been James Van Riemsdyk, but I don't remember completely without having it in front of me at least. But somebody was asking, and it's basically it's on everybody. We know we shouldn't go anywhere. So who I know who was? It was Joel Farabee who was asked about it, because apparently a lot of them who don't live typically in the city or do anything like that are staying at the hotel that's nearby where the skate zone is. Okay. And he goes, we order out a lot. We get stuff delivered. We'll kind of hang out with each other a little bit, but that's it. We don't leave the place, and that makes enough sense, like. You're just trying your best to avoid exposure.
The fact that Joel Farabee's 20 years old and can't get served alcohol anywhere probably doesn't hurt things.
Well, I wasn't going to go there with it because that's not what I mean. I'm saying
sure, but you hear some stories out of baseball and football about guys going out and partying and getting in trouble with COVID exposure. It's a little tougher when you can't get served.
I suppose, but it's. For me, it's just, it's going to be a question that pops up a lot. The good news is that they are going to be able to tell you this information somewhere down the line. They can actually identify the player, tell you this is the guy who has this or this guy has that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and we'll get there as the season kind of gets going.
So let's get back to the pairings a little bit, because I gave you 2 of them so far. I gave you the top one. I gave you the second one, which is pretty consistent. So with Gostisbehere kind of on the shelf for the moment because we just don't know any information, I don't really know which side each one has played on, but Eric Gustafsson's played with Robert Haig, and it seems like a decent pairing. A lot of players, by the way, for a guy who we don't have a lot of background information on because he's new, a lot of players have said a lot of nice things about Eric Gustafsson and his ability to move the puck and skate. He's got some offensive prowess. He's taken some power play time, and it's all really positive stuff, Like, yeah. I'm kind of interested. That's another one, and he's going to be playing for the road team tonight, the white jerseys.
Okay.
I believe there he is. Yeah. Okay. I almost couldn't find the name for a second. I had to go down to 56. Sorry.
And I'm starting to look at it, and I haven't really seen Chuck Fletcher make much of a bad move. So the fact that Eric Gustafsson is a great guy and contributing on the third pair and playing well with Ghost and contributing on the power play doesn't surprise me in the absolute on the third pair with Hag, rather. I'm sorry. But the fact that he's contributing doesn't surprise me in the absolute slightest, because Chuck Fletcher has done a great job and Chuck Fletcher brought him in. So I kind of trust him here off the rip.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is fair too, that you should have that kind of trust in him right now because he's made a lot of good calls with everything else.
What's he done that hasn't worked out?
Really much. The only thing I can think of is the unfortunate, like, no one's going to blame him for the buyout of Andrew McDonald's contract, but the David Schlemko one was a little bit of a unnecessary move in the grand scheme of things. Like, not unnecessary, but traded.
Unnecessary is the right word. It was unnecessary. They didn't have to do it.
Well, it was very much a, like, not help you, help me kind of thing, but like it was done in with that in mind. Like, here's 2 players, and I mean, granted, the one thing you can give them is that and I want to say it's completely because Jordan Wheel couldn't even crack the playoff roster for Montreal at times, or playoff lineup, I should say, but they were using Dale Weiss and Jordan Wheel in their lineup at times, and the Flyers didn't have either of the guys they got back beyond the half year that they were there. You know what I mean?
No, you're right. But yeah, that's kind of it, and I kind of trust Chuck Fletcher at this point. So, like I said, the fact that Eric Gustafsson looked good does not surprise me in the absolute slightest.
I think this is what we can say about Chuck Fletcher. The moves that have mattered the most, whether it's re-signing a guy to a contract, let's do it this way. I think we can look back on, especially even further down the road than the 1 year we've had so far to do this. When you really look back on it, you're going to go, Ivan Provorov's contract that was so important to get done when it was done, you did it right. And Travis Konechny's contract, when it was important to get it done, you got it done right. And the same thing will be said for Sean Couturier's next contract, however you decide to do this. The same will be said for what you decide to do with Claude Giroux when his contract is up. The same will be said for this offseason when it comes time for Carter Hart's contract. The key is, did you do it in the right way? And realistically, the one thing that I liked about his entire offseason is that he kept the flat cap in mind the whole way, made deals that seemed smart. Here's $3 million a year for Oscar Lindblom, who could very well, by the time that contract is over, let's say he comes back in a 56-game season, somehow scores, let's say he scores 15.
He might score 20.
It's possible, but let's just conservatively say 15, right?
I'm going to throw that out there as a hot take for the season. Oscar Lindblom scores 20.
Okay.
You heard it here first.
But let's say he scores 15 conservatively. Do you come back the next year and say, well, what happens now if he scores 30 and 82? What happens if he scores, 35 at some point in time by the end of that contract? It's going to make $3 million a year look like a bargain.
Right. That kind of player should be making 7, 8, 9 as the cap continues to go, starts to go back up here in the next couple of years.
Right. And I mean, let's put it this way, even doing something as simple as giving Nolan Patrick the qualifying offer this year. And I'm not saying that's not like that's a formality, but at the same time, he's making next to nothing. And you basically gave him the opportunity to come back and prove himself before having the opportunity to re-sign him, depending on what kind of year he has,
Would you be surprised if Nolan Patrick has between 8 and 12 goals, 15 to 20 assists, and ends up in the 35, 40 point range?
No.
You wouldn't be surprised in the slightest, right?
No, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, here's the thing. The only thing that would surprise me about that is depending on how quickly he's on that pace. Like I'm sitting here saying that sounds realistic for him. If he has, let's just say mid to late March into April. And I know it's weird to talk like that, but that is the late part of the schedule.
I know.
Let's just say he has that because he's kind of had it in both of the other seasons he's played. That second half surge where the points start to come a little bit more frequently. He gets on a bit of a goal scoring streak, something like I would not be surprised if he comes out and now that he's going to actually play in games, now that he's going to have to play against opponents that are going to be providing him with a harder time. It's not practice. Like my kind of thing is that like I laugh about some of the stuff that I see when it's, everybody looks good in practice. I kind of laugh about it because I go, everybody looks good in practice. Right. What did you think? They forgot how to skate. They forgot how to do stick handle. Right. They forgot how to shoot hockey players. They're still good. Of course they look good. I want to see how they look when they play against not just their peers on the same team in a game setting, but let's put them against the opponent. Like that game against Pittsburgh is the test, Yeah,
absolutely.
No, and I'm just saying, like, I would not be surprised for Nolan Patrick if, I don't know if I want to just do the rest of January and say the first 2 weeks of the season or do even the first month and a half. And I go, you know what? He's got 3 goals and 7 assists in whatever number of games that is. What would that be? 25?
Something like that. Yeah.
Let's say that. Like he might have 9, 10 points in 25 games and still then find a way to get on track and finish the year with, say, that 10 goal, 15 assist mark and get to 25 in 52 or 56 or 52 could be realistic, by the way, because of a game off here or there for his own health,
But what I meant by that was, let's say Nolan Patrick ends up in that 25, 30 point range. That guy's making $1 million this year, right? That's a smart move out of Chuck Fletcher to just get him in for a year, just get something done, let him come back, let him try to prove himself, let him show you he's healthy. And it might hurt Chuck Fletcher next offseason if Nolan Patrick comes back and, maybe he ends up passing Kevin Hayes and playing on the second line for some time here and ends up with 15 goals. All of a sudden, Chuck Fletcher's got a bit of a problem next summer, but that's a good problem to have, and I'll take it.
The weird thing is I don't think he's going to have a problem, and I'll tell you why. Depending on how well certain players play this particular year, and it's going to depend on who gets the opportunities. But let's just say Morgan Frost gets a little bit more of a look than not expected, but gets more of a look as he should, right? Like we think he's close to taking a step.
Yeah.
What if Morgan Frost, who by the way earlier in camp said I'll play anywhere, it doesn't matter, even though they've run him as center a lot, and he was a center in juniors and things like that. What if he comes in and basically takes Michael Raffles' place on the wing? And now he's
likely.
And now he's here on his entry-level contract in place of Michael Raffle, who even though he didn't make a ton of money, it still frees up probably something in the range of about $1 million, right? Something roughly close to that, right? And what if somebody, I don't know who, but let's pick somebody who's significant, comes off the books because Seattle comes calling.
Okay, so you're looking at more than likely, hopefully, like a James Van Riemsdyk.
Well, let's say it is. I don't know who it's going to be specifically, but let's say it's Van Riemsdyk, right? Okay. So the $7 million comes off the books. Now maybe you even re-sign Michael Raffle and say you're a perfect fit for our fourth line, and now you go Morgan Frost. Your time has come. You're playing left wing alongside Nolan Patrick and Jake Voracek next year.
I don't know. I still think Michael Raffle's probably done, not even on the fourth line, because you're still waiting on Bunneman and Leschinski and all these guys coming at a.
Depending on how much Leschinski plays, you're probably right with that one.
And there's
I'll give you
more people in the pipes. Like it is unlikely.
To me, the key is who makes it in. Like, unfortunately, if Leschinski struggles to recover and doesn't really play, they will get it. They will bring back a guy like Raffle just to be that security blanket. You know, that's what I think I'm saying from that is that I would be more concerned with that. Like, I think if everybody stays healthy, if everybody starts to show what potential they have, then yes, I think Raffle is a guy you feel like you can part ways with, even though he is that the way they've talked about him. He's that Swiss Army knife of potential, right? Like talent and things like that.
I certainly don't mind Michael Raffle spending the rest of his days in a Flyers uniform. I like Michael Raffle a lot.
Right.
But he is somebody that, when you start pinching pennies, he's probably one of the guys who you can clip pretty easily in favor of a guy on his ELC. Right.
Yeah, I think so.
One of the things that, kind of in the long-term future of this team, it's going to get expensive in a hurry, right? If Nolan Patrick is back and turns into, the second overall pick to whatever extent he ends up turning into, at some point in his career, he's probably going to make $6, $7, $8, $9, $10 million.
Well, beyond this year is where the concern comes in, because this year you talk about what Sean Couturier is going to make. Well, no, because Carter Hart is when you have to address this offseason. Right. The year after, you're going to address Sean Couturier, Claude Giroux, and you're going to have all these other guys that you go, how do we make this part of it work? I think the Flyers are going to get a boost from a money standpoint because I think they'll find a way to get somebody who has a big contract off the books with Seattle. That's going to be their saving grace this offseason.
I've said for a while that I think the Flyers are going to be one of the teams most well equipped to trade assets to Seattle to get rid of a contract.
Potentially,
right? You have the prospect pool. You don't necessarily want to, but I would trade a first round pick to Seattle to get rid of JVR's contract next year. After this year.
Here's what I would say
then. To make that move.
Here's what I would say then. First of all, depending on how well you do, because if the first rounder is later and Seattle's going, well, look, we'll just take anybody we can put into a system because we're also getting a full team in expansion.
And they also have to reach cap floor, right?
Right. Then I would say this. If you have as successful a season as you hope to have, and that pick is in the 20s somewhere, maybe the lower 20s if it's really successful like you hope it is, right? And part of the equation of getting that being in that area of picking in the first round is Nolan Patrick is a huge contributor to it, and he was your number 2 pick a few years back, and it feels like you've got something new again, even though he's not a new part per se. Then maybe that's when you say, yeah, I'll part with the first round pick because I got this guy back.
He's going to eat up a lot of that JVR money eventually.
Well, because consider the alternative. If he doesn't play, like if he didn't play at all this year, if he was still not cleared, if we're still playing this game back and forth, and now we go to over 2 years since that last game, do you even give him a qualifying offer? Or do you finally just cut ties and say, forget it, this is over? It's been 2 years. I'm sorry, and I'm glad we're not having that conversation because everything seems to be pointing the other direction. He's going to play, you know what I mean? But But like,
and I know I've said some pretty harsh things about Nolan Patrick's career on this show because, quite frankly, in the moment, things looked pretty harsh for him. But I am certainly glad no one is happier than me that Nolan Patrick is on the ice and looks healthy. And it looks like he could be a contributor to this team.
I don't care about a lot of things involving the kid in terms of like, if you want to sit there and talk about the way his interviews go or how he doesn't seem like he has a personality or he seems like he's a little cocky about it. Really I don't care. He plays the game really well. He's got really great skills and potential. And if he goes out and somehow looks like he's on the right path to being a potential superstar like everybody thought he would be because he brings back those tools. Like a lot of the players who are talking about him in camp, a lot of his teammates, I should say, is, they're saying things like, it shouldn't look like this when you've taken this much time off. It's like he never missed any time. And that's really interesting.
Awesome
let's just like, I've got one for you from the very beginning of even from this morning. Sunday morning, leading into the scrimmage, Alain Vigneault turned around and even said he's been one of the best players in camp this year. Wow, what a compliment.
That's crazy.
To be one of the best players in camp. You haven't played in 2 years almost.
That's fantastic to hear, and that goes to why he was picked second overall. And for a long time, his draft year, he was the projected first overall pick, right? We've known it all along. So, okay. For a while, Sean Couturier was kind of, and not a bust, but people were disappointed with Sean Couturier as a top 10 pick because he wasn't really producing offensively. And everyone knew that he had this top 10 talent, but people kind of forgot it over the first 5 or 6 years of his career because he was just so good defensively. He wasn't really ever put in the position to succeed. Similar story with Scott Lawton, right? We saw him kind of break out a little bit on the second line last year.
Right.
I see something very similar with Nolan Patrick, and it'll be handled differently with the fans because he had more of a fall from grace, right? Sean Couturier was, again, just a little bit slow developing offensively, and Scott Lawton took a little while to find his game. But I think Nolan Patrick, after a little bit of a slow start, I could see him kind of doing the same thing. And when he's 24, 25, 26 and really starts maturing, and obviously the migraine issue is gone, I think he has the chance to be a dominant player in this league. And I don't know if he's going to get there, obviously, but again, he was picked second overall for a reason, right? He's got the pedigree for a reason.
Yeah, look, here's the thing too, because Nolan Patrick came with that kind of expectation as an offense player. I don't know if Sean Couturier really did completely, and here's the thing. It was easy. I think the reason Sean Couturier's profile the way that you just described is because his rookie year was pretty good from an offensive standpoint in terms of he wasn't thrown into some big role. At the time when he's thrown into a role where he's playing with potentially guys like Danny Briere, who isn't the forefront guy either at that point in time, because that was the year that Claude Giroux is just is now getting started as one of the leaders on the team. So he's the surefire top line guy now after being in that role before. And in Couturier's rookie year, they've got Jaromir Jagr, they've got Scott Hartnell who's scoring a ton of goals, right? Like there was a pretty good clear pecking order there, and Couturier fell in the middle six somewhere, and the expectations are lower for guys like that. It wasn't until they were basically forced, based on the roster construction, to play him in a higher role, and you're going, well, geez, 15 goals, that's it,
right?
Like 13, that's it, Where's the offense at? I thought his offense was supposed to evolve. Now he's getting more significant playing time, power play, things like that. Where's the production?
And one day he snaps his finger and starts scoring 30 a year.
Well, I also think that something that this has to do with is the is kind of the makeup of it being like, and where I'm going with this is when you have a front office situation where you kind of are desiring more, the team's success isn't there. I'm tired of hearing about patience, things like that, because that was Ron Hextall's line. He's only 25. He's only 24. It will come with time. Just, he'll come around on the offensive side. Right now we're thrilled with his defensive play. He's a very skilled defensive player who does his job at that end, and the offensive side will come with time.
And as we sit here in 2021, he's still the reigning Selke Trophy winner.
Exactly.
Like the defense hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah, think about how it's evolved that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and okay, so I'm gonna switch topics a little bit, right? We've talked a lot about training camp.
Yep.
We've talked a lot about Sean Couturier. I want a bold prediction from you for the upcoming season. And it can be anything. It can be what the team does. It can be what a player does. It can be a league award. It can be somebody unexpected missing the playoffs. But I want a big, bold take from you for 21. I gave you a little bit. I gave you a little bit of a light one earlier with Oscar Lindblom scoring 20 goals this year. I'll do you one better. I don't know how hot this take is.
Okay.
But I think Edmonton goes to the conference finals.
Okay, see, you're talking about something from around the league too.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it can be anything. Oh, it can be anything.
That's the difference, because I'm sitting here trying to give looking at the Flyers ones. And I don't really know if there's a hot take for the Flyers, in terms of prediction, because there's you gave like you said, a light one with Lindblom, but I don't know if that would surprise a ton of people. You know what I mean?
Ivan Provorov has at least 50 points this year.
That's an interesting one. 50 points?
50 points this year. Yep.
In 56 games.
56 game season. Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Predict a big season out of Ivan Provorov, no matter who plays with him. And I think Ivan Provorov maybe doesn't win it, but I think he's in the conversation for the first time in his career for a Norris nomination. Not saying
I'll tell you what. I'm going to try it because you kind of gave the one you just gave was kind of a team centric one with the Edmonton thing. Yeah. So I'm going to look at every single division right now and try to come up with something for each division for you.
Okay.
Like here's one I have for the North Division, and you can call me crazy if this is the way it is. It kind of not happened this way, but we'll see. Just hear me out with this one. Here's a bold prediction for you. The Montreal Canadiens will go further in the playoffs than the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Oh man, that's funny.
I actually believe that. I really was impressed by Montreal a year ago, and I continue to think they grow. And I just don't know with Toronto sometimes, but I think
I know you believe it. That's why it's so funny.
Okay,
I think it's got a real potential of being the case, and man, I can't wait to hear the Steve Dangle video when that happens.
All right, for the West. I don't know how bold this is, but I'll say this because this is the thing that I was thinking the most, because I have a feeling that a lot of people have a different answer than this. So I'll say this and consider it bold. I think the Colorado Avalanche win that division. I don't think it's outrageous, but Vegas is going to get a lot of the attention.
My only issue with Colorado, and it's the same problem every year, and they still haven't fixed it, but it doesn't seem to matter, is they never have goaltending. Pavel Francouz is their starter?
No, it's Grubauer is.
Grubauer? I don't trust Philip Grubauer, man.
Okay.
I don't know. And I don't know what it is. He just hasn't ever proven me.
That makes me feel real good about my fantasy team now. Thanks.
Well, listen, I had
Philip Grubauer is my second goalie. So
I had a fantasy draft last night, and it was a bit of a train wreck. So you might have me beat here. It's okay.
In fairness so far, by the way, my first pick of the draft, because the league I'm in a league. I share a team with my dad, and it's an 18 team league. So we're really picking.
You're going deep.
Yeah. So we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel at the end of the thing, right? Our first pick, we had the 15th pick in the draft out of 18. So we weren't in the running for any of the true top guys. So with the 15th pick, we ended up taking Mikko Rantanen.
That's a good one.
Pretty good pick. Grubauer was our second goalie. So do you notice a little bit of a preference here because they're both Colorado guys? Not to say I don't have a Vegas guy, by the way. We have William Karlsson.
Okay.
So, William Karlsson, by the way, taken in the 9th round or something like that. So kind of felt like a steal at that point.
For sure. Absolutely.
All right, let's look at the Central for a minute here. All right, so here's the thing that I don't know if this qualifies as a bold prediction again. It's kind of hard to say. Is it bold to say? Is it necessarily being bold to have to be somebody's successes, or could it be bold to say that somebody's not as good?
Listen, last year one of my hot takes for the season was that the Pittsburgh Penguins were going to miss the playoffs.
So actually, I believe that this year. So we might
we'll negatively here for sure.
I just, you know what I honestly believe? I don't think it's going to be as good of a year for the Dallas Stars. Like looking at that division, like the fact they're going to have to play Tampa regularly is going to be a problem. I think Carolina is a problem for that division. I think Columbus is a good team in that division in some capacity because Columbus now plays. Because I think if Columbus played in the East Division, they would not make the playoffs because of the Islanders and the Capitals and the Flyers and the Bruins and too many other teams to count, right?
Yeah, in the Central, you have a chance.
Yeah, because I look at the Central and I go, yeah, Tampa's a better team than Columbus is. Carolina probably is, but I sit there and I say I think Columbus. Let's just say Columbus is definitely better than Detroit. I think Columbus is better than Florida. I think Columbus is better than Nashville.
Yep.
So I think they're making the playoffs at the very least, right? You know, four teams make it. So I just wiped out 4. You know, I just don't think that Dallas is going to be as good as they were a year ago. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they are. And I'm not trying to downplay him, but I just don't think he's going to last as a goalie. I don't think Hudobin's going to be as good as he was in those playoffs. Like I think I think that was a run that you had a shot. It didn't quite make it to the finish line, and
there's my fantasy team. I picked him with the 3rd overall pick in the draft. So thanks.
Oh, I wouldn't want to touch him.
Well, it's a keeper league. It's not.
Well, and here's the thing. In fairness, too. We've like every year we've drafted, we've like played up the goalie thing big time. And one year we had a late 1st round pick and we went, all right, you know what? Why don't we just spring for the goalie first instead? And we grabbed Vasilevsky, which is obviously always a good pick, right? Now, last year we had the very last pick in the 1st round, which meant we had the 1st pick in the 2nd round. So when that rotation rolled over, we had to pick a goalie with one of them. And the highest starter at the time, and I remember this is the start of last season, was Marc-Andre Fleury, who for the beginning was pretty good.
Was good
until Robin Lehner showed up and he wasn't the starter anymore and stuff like that. But for most of
the knife in his back, yeah, it's a whole thing.
Right, but still, like that was, and don't get me wrong, the next pick we made, whether it was the first one of the 2nd round or the last one of the 1st round, I don't remember which order we picked him, was Leon Draisaitl, who only went on to win the Hart. You know, so
pretty good.
Exactly. Like, so don't you can grab the best player. We basically agreed when we were doing this draft that, goaltending was not the complete answer here because goaltending doesn't win you the week completely. Goal scoring is so much more of a thing. And that the depth, it doesn't matter which star player you get. The depth players you pick are the ones that win.
Absolutely. I'm taking a look at the West here. I have a West prediction for you.
All right, let's hear it.
So I'm looking at this division. And I certainly see Colorado, St. Louis, and Vegas just beating up on these other 5 teams a whole bunch.
Mm-hmm.
The 4th team that slips in the West can be the San Jose Sharks.
Okay. So
I think
you said Colorado. So Colorado, St. Louis, Vegas, and then you're throwing in.
Those are your 3 locks, and then there's a little bit of up in the air, right? You got the Sharks, you got Minnesota, you got, the Arizona could theoretically, probably not. But yeah, I think it's going to be San Jose.
Well, while we're on it, then let's just keep doing this for the rest of the divisions while we're at it really quick because this is easy. But I don't think it's San Jose. Okay. Maybe I have Arizona a little higher in higher regard than you do, probably.
I just think organizationally they're
here's what I do agree with. Minnesota takes a step back. So I do think that that's something that, because I think they suffered in 2 key areas that they lost something in. And one is goal
is kind of crumbling right now.
Well, here's the problem. I think they took a step back in goaltending, from Dubnyk to now, I guess Stalock with Cam Talbot, but like,
do not feel good about that duo.
Right. And then you traded Eric Stahl, which I'm not trying to say Eric Stahl is like the leader of all leaders here in terms of production, but I don't think they're going to get I think literally they're talking about Marcus Johansson being their top line center, and I just don't see it.
That ain't it, Chief.
Right. So the other 2 teams that we didn't talk about yet in that division do intrigue me quite a bit. Anaheim's got a lot of good young players, so that team could take a step forward. They might, they might be that team that kind of challenges if San Jose rises to where you think they might be, could challenge in Arizona. Because let's put it this way, yes, Vegas, St. Louis, and Colorado are going to beat up on each other, and I'm sure beat up on the other teams.
Well, they're going to beat up on the other 5 teams is what I'm talking about.
Right, but at the same time, what I mean by that is that, you know what? These other 5 teams against each other are somewhere, close to even to, like in terms of possibilities with them.
Sure.
So, I even think LA has a chance to take some positive steps. I don't know if I wouldn't say a playoff team, but I think that they have a chance to take some positive steps.
And you know what? Listen, this might be the hottest take of the show.
Okay. Let's hear it. Here we go.
John Gibson's a really good goalie.
He is. I agree.
In a division with 1 playoff spot up for grabs and some good young talent in your forward core, don't count out the Anaheim Ducks. I'm not saying they're going to do much. I'm not saying they're going to be a good playoff team. In a normal year, I don't think they would be a competitor for a wild card spot, but we don't have wild card spots. We have top 4 in each division.
Right.
And they might be able to win enough games in a 56-game schedule. John Gibson might be able to steal you enough games to squeak into that 4th spot.
Right.
Is that crazy of me?
No, it's not, because, I think he's a goalie who's more in his prime than maybe somebody else, some of the other teams.
25, 26. Like John,
because San Jose has Martin Jones and now has Devin Dubnyk. So
bad.
Well, I think Martin Jones I think Dubnyk helps a little bit. So I see your merit. Well, no, and but that to me helps me see your merit behind the Sharks make the playoffs, sure. Right? You know what I mean? Like that's why I said Minnesota to me doesn't have the impressive goaltending. LA, Jonathan Quick is getting older every single year.
They're starting to go down.
And in Arizona,
for a bad half decade or so.
Yeah, and in Arizona's case, what are you expecting? You're expecting Darcy Kemper to be exactly what he was a year ago, especially against the same teams regularly. I don't know if it's going to happen.
Well,
you made me laugh with that. You made me laugh with that LA comment, by the way, because there was a guy who, while we were drafting for fantasy, who took who did he end up taking? He took
Doughty.
He took Drew Doughty and Dustin Brown. I said, "Oh my God, what is this guy stuck in 2014?"
It's right. If the LA Kings are going to compete, I think you mentioned some spots. I'm gonna throw in a little tease here because we are going to talk World Juniors on the way out. If the LA Kings are going to make any sort of run, Alex Turcotte may be a huge part of that.
How about Quentin Byfield?
Or Quentin Byfield, yeah. LA is going to get a boost here,
possibly.
But again, we'll talk about World Juniors after we finish up our divisions here. So you had your North prediction, you had your Central, and you had your West. What was your East/Metro?
Oh, right. I thought we were going back to like the other division to do who our 4 playoff teams were.
Oh, no. I thought we were doing predictions here.
Well, they are predictions.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Bold prediction for the East.
One more hot take for the East here, and then we'll switch over to World Juniors here.
This is tricky. I mean, is it bold? Is it still bold to say the Penguins won't make the playoffs this year?
See, I don't know.
That's the one I believe. That's the one I believe the most.
I don't think I can give you credit for predicting X will miss the playoffs in this division just because there's too many good teams. I don't think it would be a surprise if any. There are 6 playoff teams in this division, and only 4 are going to make it. And I'm calling the Rangers a playoff team a little loosely, and I'm being a little loose with the definition. But I don't think anybody's surprised if Washington, Pittsburgh, Philly, Boston, I said Pittsburgh, I said Philly, I said Washington. Who else am I missing here? The Islanders,
Boston, Buffalo, New Jersey, Islanders, Rangers, Flyers, Penguins.
Could be a playoff team. The Rangers could be a playoff team. You could easily have six teams in this division.
All right, then fine. You know what? Then here's my bold prediction for you because the NHL built this into the schedule. So I'm going to say this division delivers on what they want for their schedule. On the final day of the regular season, there are 6 teams that are still alive in the playoff race.
Man, that would be maximum chaos.
And that doesn't mean like here's an example. I think Boston wins the division this year.
I'm not so sure about that.
Okay, I think that's who wins the division. Maybe that's a bold prediction then. I don't know. But I think Boston wins the division. Let's just say that, right? So I think when the season comes down to it in early May, Boston's locked up their spot in the playoffs. They're in. And I think somebody else possibly has locked their spot. But I'm saying I believe that there are 2 spots still possibly up for grabs on the final day of the season. That's my bold prediction for you on that. Okay. That the rest of the division will be that close. And I'm not telling you who I think the second team is. I don't know if it, there are 2 teams. There are 2 teams I think it will be.
Okay.
It's either going to be the New York Islanders or the Philadelphia Flyers that are locked into one of the top 2 spots when the season's last week is going on. And then I think that the rest of it will be the other team out of the 2 that I just mentioned that is not locked in, the Rangers, the Capitals, and the Penguins.
Okay. But also, I don't think it would surprise you at all if Boston is one of the teams fighting for the division and Washington and Pittsburgh have spots locked up.
No, and okay.
Right? And that's how crazy close the division is. That's my point about how close it is. It's absolutely wild to me.
Well, here's something fair for you too. I don't think the division is locked up by anybody with 2 games to go in the season either. I think that somebody's going to be in and somebody else is going to be in, and they are going to be battling for the top. And then there's 4 others that are going to be sitting there going, we still have a shot too, and there's 2 spots left. Let's see what happens. And I don't know, I don't know everybody's schedule right off the top of my head perfectly, but I wouldn't be shocked if somehow or other that you've got a direct matchup that says this game could be for the playoffs. And that's what I think the league wants. I think the East Division is what gives it to them. I don't think it's the Central. I don't think it's the West. I don't think, or I shouldn't say that. The West is not going to give them as many. The West is going to possibly give them here's 2 teams left, 1 spot, go for it, but
I think you have a chance of getting something similar in the North Division too, because I think Toronto is essentially locked. And I think Calgary is essentially locked. And then after that, I think you have Edmonton, who, yes, earlier I did predict would go to the conference finals. I still think they're going to be fighting for a playoff spot to get there. I think you have Edmonton fighting. You have Vancouver fighting. Don't count out Winnipeg, a bounce back season, and Connor Hellebuck, right? For the same reasons I talked about Anaheim. Montreal is a team. There are conceivably 4 or 5 teams. The only team that's really out of it in the North is Ottawa. Every other team has at least dreams of getting in.
Okay. Let's see. So are you giving me 4 teams that you think are making the division or making the playoffs out of that division or what?
Toronto and Edmonton. Or I'm sorry, I gave you Toronto and
Calgary.
I think Edmonton gets in.
And
oh man. It's either Winnipeg or Montreal for me.
All right.
And I think, man, I still just don't know who's playing defense for the Winnipeg Jets. I got to go with Montreal.
Okay, that's fair. So now I'll do mine for you then, because we're pretty similar. Because right away, without thinking about it, I go, first of all, I think Edmonton's winning that division, by the way.
I think there's a chance that happens, certainly.
I think they win that division because I think it's because when this is going to be a statement that doesn't sound good from a Flyer standpoint because it's not going to apply to them. Having superstar players that can take over a game can mean a lot when you play the same team all the time. Yep. So I think that even though it is very much a team game, even though you very much need good goaltending to win, I think that the answer to this question is Edmonton's got 2 of the best players in the world, and I think that they carry them a lot. Assuming nobody gets hurt, assuming nobody gets a positive COVID test, I think that they carry them. And that is where I will go with that. So I think that Edmonton is going to win that division. I think Toronto. What's that?
No Oscar Klefbom?
Yeah, I know, but I think Darnell Nurse is pretty darn good. And I think that they've got some other, Ethan Bear. Yeah.
I'm very excited about Ethan Bear as a hockey player. He's fun to watch.
Yeah, so I think they've got enough of the pieces in play. And quite frankly, you know what? The last thing that you want to do, especially however many times you play Edmonton in a year, which for these teams is going to be 9 or 10 times, the last thing you want to do is get into shootouts with these guys. And I don't mean shootouts in the literal sense, like at the end of a game. I'm talking about 6-5 style games or 6-3 or whatever. You know what I mean? If it turns into high offense, high power really quick, that's the bread and butter of McDavid Draisaitl,
Well, bread and butter for Matthews and Marner.
It can. Well, I have Toronto in the playoffs. I just think that Toronto's going to experience more defensive struggles.
Imagine if in the first round, Edmonton plays Calgary, right? And you get that series. Of course. And then you get the Battle of Alberta. And then in the second round, they get to go play Toronto.
Well, I don't think so. But
the playoffs, okay?
I hear you. Okay, well, I don't think so because here's why. Then this lines up perfectly with my bold prediction because let's just say that Calgary is the 4 seed out of that one. Edmonton wins a division. You got Toronto, Montreal smack in the middle there, and Montreal beats Toronto to move on to play the Edmonton Oilers in the divisional semifinals there, or however you want to look at it.
you agree with my take that the Edmonton Oilers will make the the conference finals?
I guess so. In that sense,
beating Montreal in the second round, don't you?
Well, nobody said it's the Eastern Conference Finals, by the way.
I know. That's why I amended it.
I'm not just saying it's going to be Edmonton right away.
Well, but if they win the 2 rounds in their division, then boom, conference finals. There you go.
Here's the thing. I think here's where I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right that Ottawa's not going to just jump into the playoffs right away, no matter how many kids they get.
Although I will think they're going to look better this year than they did last year. They're going to show.
You know what?
They're not going to get a chance. They're not going to get a chance to show that improvement in the standings because they're in kind of a juggernaut division. They don't have easy teams to beat up on. They're going to struggle this year.
Yeah, you know what? There's an element of this to tie it back to the Flyers again. There's an element of this schedule that I like for the Flyers, even though divisional games are tough constantly. I think you know what you're getting in this sense. I don't think you can walk in anymore and go 3 games against Ottawa, 2 against LA, and not that they won every single one of them anyway last year, but you know what I mean? Like, but still, like, I don't think those are gimmies anymore. And I think the Flyers, the Flyers, I think, have an example of that in their own division. Like, I don't think you can sit there and say just because Buffalo and New Jersey don't make the playoffs, doesn't mean that they're poorer than they were a year ago.
I think the Devils are a rollover team. I don't think Mackenzie Blackwood is as good as we saw him be last season, and I think the team in front of him is just not good.
Well, okay.
PK Subban will continue to be a black hole in both the offensive and defensive zones.
I'll give you 2 things with that one then. I agree they're not as good of a defensive team. And the Corey Crawford situation, which we haven't mentioned yet, Corey Crawford just retiring kind of not out of the blue, but like it went from leave of absence. It went from being the backup to Blackwood or kind of being the tandem with Blackwood to I'm taking a personal indefinite leave of absence to I'm retiring. Now the New Jersey Devils don't have a backup goalie.
Yep. That's a problem.
That is a problem in a shortened schedule for sure.
Right.
And then let's put it this way. Realistically, you could say the exact same thing kind of about the Buffalo Sabres. Their goaltending is suspect. Their defense is younger. Like they have Dahlin's a good defenseman. Ristolainen is a good defenseman. I don't know if they are on the highest level they could be. You can add a bunch of great forwards if you want to. You can draft really well. You still need that there's still something they need. And I still think that there's enough skill in the division. The Ovechkins and the Crosbys and the Bergeron Marchands and the, who else can we go to? Pasternak's obviously for Boston. For the Rangers, the Panarins and even now the Lafrenières and the Capo Cacos. And even on the Flyers side, the Giroux and the Voraceks and some of the other, and go newer, the Konechnys and the Farabys and the Lindbloms. There's enough guys who I think can do a number on those teams. I mean, let's put it this way. The Flyers I don't think the Flyers have that pure goal scorer type or that superstar type player. And they went out and they played Buffalo last year. And I'm not trying to say that Buffalo didn't make some additions, but they went out and played Buffalo last year at one point in time and won 6-1 and made it look easy as anything because you took one player off of the Buffalo Sabres and said, he's not here to be the scoring threat anymore. And they went out and they just demolished that team.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think the Buffalo Sabres expect to contend this year. I think they're just kind of looking to see.
I think they expect to contend. I just don't think it's going to happen.
I think they know internally. I think they mentioned that they expect to contend. I think they know internally that all they're really trying to do is inflate the value of Taylor Hall as much as possible before they flip him for half price at the deadline.
If that's what they do, then that's what they do. I don't think so, but
I have a feeling if you're bad, like I think they're gonna be, at a certain point, I think Taylor Hall takes it among himself to get out of Buffalo.
Well, I don't think they're going to be able to flip him that easily though because of the contract. It's still a 1-year contract at $8 million.
Yeah, but you get it down to 4 when you retain half because at that point, whatever you're at the trade deadline.
Okay, yeah, if they retain some salary, I could see it.
Right, they retain half. Teams can easily take on 4, especially if you're sending back a middling player or whatever.
Maybe, I don't know. It's a tough call when it comes to trades, but yeah. But either way, is there anybody else left we even have to cover? I think we did all those. So let's just move to the juniors, right?
I think we hit a pretty solid a little prediction here. And speaking of predictions, I absolutely nailed a prediction last week.
Let's go to this.
On this show, I predicted that this would happen. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, we have a picture of Team USA winning gold medal at World Juniors. And it happened almost exactly as I predicted it.
Spencer Knight. Scary. This was scary. Last week,
Knight did real well. I'll throw to you here and let you tell it.
Because I wrote it down because I went back and heard this specific part of it. You come on here and say that because we both agreed they were going to win the game against Finland, right?
Right.
We both agreed that we were probably getting a U.S.-Canada gold medal game, and that's exactly what we got. And let's put it this way. I take some credit in that prediction as well because of the fact that from the beginning we said, there wouldn't be anything better as a precursor to everything coming in this upcoming week than a U.S.-Canada gold medal game. That's what we need, and that's exactly what we got, and it was great. Kyle came on here last week. Game, by the way. Kyle came on here last week and said that the U.S. was going to win the gold medal by virtue of a 38-save shutout from Spencer Knight in a 1-0 win. The final score of this gold medal game was 2-0 USA, and Spencer Knight made 34 saves. Not bad.
Pretty good. It's pretty good. Listen, I'll take it, and I watched most of this game. I will admit I kind of fell asleep towards the end because I was tired. Spencer Knight looked great. Team USA just had a game plan. And there was some talk before the game. Team USA was very confident. Somebody, I can't remember who, mentioned that, Team Canada hasn't played a real team yet, and they haven't really been tested, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they kind of came out and proved themselves right. They came out and played a mature game and just kind of broke Canada down.
Oh, I know who you're talking about now. The guy who said it was Trevor Zegras.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. He was who basically said it, and apparently it got on the nerves of Team Canada.
Oh, it ran heavy on TSN. It got significant play in Canada that Trevor Zegras was talking all this smack before the gold medal.
No, I really think that that's kind of harmless, though, to say. I don't think that what is he saying? I don't know if I would say that they haven't played a real team yet, but I would have said
they haven't been tested. He said they haven't played a real team yet.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if I would have said that you haven't played a real team yet, but I would have said, I don't think they've been tested the way that we can test them. I think they haven't seen a team like us yet. That's just playing yourself up. That's not trying to downplay their abilities. That's just you saying they're a good team, but I think they haven't seen a team like the one we have yet.
And then he came out and said their goalie hasn't been tested, and we're going to show him shots that he hasn't seen before. And I mean, they came out and walked the walk, right? Say what you want about the prediction, but
because here's the thing.
There you go.
Because here's the thing: even from the offensive standpoint, and Zegras scored one of the goals because he was standing at the side of the net, and Turcotte had the other one, and it was on a nice little tip in front set play, and it's
beautiful.
This was not the game, because we talked last week about some of the offensive side of Cam York and Bobby Rink on this team and some of the things that this was not the game for you if that's what you were looking for. This was and here's the thing. They had both of them had their moments in the semifinal against Finland. Specifically Cam York. It was not his best showing. He was really kind of beaten up, from in that play that was around the crease when he's trying to box out as best he can. He had a lot of players sneaking in behind him, getting that inside positioning near the net, and that would lead to some goals for Finland. And when you thought the U.S. had that game locked up, done, it's over, because it was 3-1. Not 3-1. It was 4-1 at one point in time, I believe, or something like that. Or no, I'm sorry, because the game was tied, so it was 3-1. It was 3-1, end of the second period, and they got the one, and you went, uh-oh, here they come. And then they got another one, and when that power play hit, and it was tied just like that, and then here comes this play. Arthur Kaliev with the shot from the slot with the puck on edge, just going. It was crazy. Yeah, it was.
That U.S. Finland game was wild. Go watch the third period if you can. It's crazy.
But it was really frustrating. And by the way, throw in a lot of other people. I'm not just talking about Cam York and Bobby Brink in the way that they played possibly, and like I'm mentioning Cam York in the third period, how he was, specifically on part of that tying goal. He's on the ice for that tying goal and trying to kill off a penalty. But Cole Caulfield, who was regarded as one of the top players on the team, a guy who I know a lot of people wanted the Flyers to take when he was on the board at that time, right?
Hello.
But Cole Caulfield took a delay of game penalty. an unnecessary, unforced, undisciplined to delay a game penalty that leads to something that could get the momentum swinging. I believe there was another one later on down the stretch that did lead to the tying goal because it was a delay game. Like, they didn't play discipline. They really had 20 minutes to play solid defensively, don't take penalties, and you're probably walking out of here with the win. And they had to score a goal with 1 minute and 16 seconds left or whatever it was to just find a way to win that game, to get to the gold medal game. And it almost didn't happen. That's it. Like, I really thought we were heading for overtime.
And the fact that the team that played Finland is the same team as the team that played Canada was crazy. Just the difference between the two. And they played the discipline. They played with how they needed to play against Canada to lock it down. And again, Spencer Knight, 34 saves, pretty close to my prediction.
Well, this is what I was about to say about the two Flyer prospects and pretty much the rest of the team too. They really brought it in the gold medal game. I mean, this was all out defensive sacrifice. And look, did your goalie have to be spectacular? Sure, he did. I mentioned to you before we started recording, like, Hunter Brody texts me and goes, Canada by 35, like after the Finland game, because why not? Like, honestly, like, geez, they just had to claw it out against the Finns. And I'm not saying the Finns aren't a good team. Like, I could have seen the Finns making the gold medal game too in this tournament, but like, they just had to claw it out against the Finns. What are you going to do against a team that hasn't trailed in a game?
Right.
The entire tournament. They hadn't trailed.
They hadn't given up a regulation goal. They had not given up
an even strength
goal in the tournament.
Correct.
What? You're in the gold medal game and you haven't allowed a goal 5-on-5? Are you kidding me?
Right. And because by that point, you're what? 6 games? Yeah, 6 games in.
6 games.
They played 6 games and didn't give up an even strength goal and never trailed the entire time.
Insane.
And it wasn't until they got to that seventh game, But so look, did your goalie have to be? Because I had a conversation with somebody else later on that even said, like, these guys didn't look very good in that game. I don't think they have a shot against Canada. And I even said it's going to take perfection. It's going to take literal perfection. And did your goalie need to be spectacular? Yes, he did. He made some saves that were very, very impressive. Yep. But they did have that defensive play in front of him too. I mean, you got Bobby Brink diving to block shots. Cam York was getting in the way of some too. He's doing all his work. Cam York makes a play. I think we all saw it because we were all watching it. On a 2-on-1, I saw people on Twitter going, "Oh my goodness, it's Chemo teaming in 2.0. Look at that sliding play to break up a 2-on-1." But it shows his defensive prowess. That was what I know that he didn't have. Like I said, I know he didn't have a good game against the Finns. I thought he had a solid game against the Czechs. I thought he had a good round robin, all things considered. I did not think he had a great game against the Russians at the beginning when they lost, but I did think he played better from there. And I think York showed he can be the defensive defenseman.
Absolutely.
I think because a lot of people were like, what's he doing? How come he's not showcased more on the power play? Would you shoot all the time on the power play if you had Zegras, Turcotte, Caulfield around you? Would you even bother?
I'm passing that puck.
Right. Find a way to get it to him and you'll make it work. You know what I mean? Like, he did not have to be the guy who had to try to create near as much as he normally does. Like, when he plays at Michigan, and by the way, he was right back out there for Michigan this weekend. I believe had an assist in each game or something like that. So he's got 2 assists in the first game and 1 in the second. So he already had 3 points coming back in 2 games at the college level because he plays a different style there. For this team, he did not have to be the offensive dynamo at the blue line. He could just play a solid, somewhat stay-at-home game, but also be a quarterback of the power play, find a way to get the puck to where it needs to go, and make things happen. Because I believe, I mentioned 3 of the names that were on that power play with him, which was Zegras and Caulfield and Turcotte, and I believe the other one then was Kaliev. So there's 4 guys who knew how to score in the tournament. Would you even worry? Like, that's what I'm saying. Would you even worry about taking a shot when you had those 4 around you? You just set him up. He does not play with that kind of talent around. Does he play with some talent like that? Sure he does, because a guy who I was very impressed with, who played a lot or at times played with Bobby Brink, was Matty Beniers, who is a teammate of Cam York's at Michigan. And undrafted, by the way. Just a hint for not undrafted. I should say draft eligible this year. That's what I mean. Oh, okay. He's draft eligible.
Okay. Well, we'll see where that goes. And either way, overall, this tournament was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and by the way, the reason for the picture selection is because obviously Cam York was the captain. He's got the trophy right there wearing a gold medal. And Bobby Brink's like trying to get at him right there in the front, you know.
He's trying to push past Drew Hellison there.
Yeah, well, Drew Hellison, who is much taller, you know, but
much larger. Yeah.
But it was cool. It was also cool. One of the cool touches at the end of this game, by the way, was how the captain of the team was giving out the gold medals instead of like the committee doing it. That was a really cool touch. Like, here's a guy. And by the way, if you can't tell that they're going to be future teammates possibly someday, he gives a gold medal to Bobby Brink. So he's the one who happens to get, because they have John Van Beesbroek, who's the GM of the team.
And
yeah, I know, right?
Pass there.
Yep, I was thinking the same thing.
Easer.
Yeah. So he goes over. So Brink goes over to York to get his, because that's the order they were still in. And so because nobody wanted to, it was funny. John Van Beesbroek was there as a prop for half of the medal ceremony because everybody wanted like, let's go over to the captain. We want to go and get it from our captain. Like, everybody wanted to go over there to just, you know, to go give him a hug and say, here, can I, you know, and now give me my medal and stuff like that. Right. Like, it was really funny. So Brink goes over and you see them, like they have a, like they hug and all that stuff like that. And so, but when they're doing the anthems, every game they were doing the anthems after they win. Who is lined up on the blue line, arm in arm? Like, the whole team is obviously, but who's right next to each other, arm in arm? Cam York and Bobby Brink. We're together for so much of it. And to me, that just says that these two are going to, you know, they already have a good bond with each other. That's what it says.
And speaking of Team USA post-game hockey traditions, yes, the video exists. And if you know what I'm talking about, it's on YouTube. Team USA, every time they win gold medal at World Juniors, celebrate in a very specific way in the locker room. And if you know, you know. And until then, I mean, I think it's about time we get out of here, right? We got a season on Wednesday. We got Cam York winning gold and looking great, doing it as the captain of Team USA.
Yeah.
It's a good time to be a Flyers fan, right? There wasn't a whole lot of negative news today, right? We had
and I think it was cool that the junior thing kind of took, like, we kind of said from the very beginning, it would be cool, and it didn't happen this way completely, but it would be cool if somehow or other we got down to the semifinals and Canada's there, US is there, Sweden's there, and insert team here, right? And this way, Sweden's playing possibly, you know, let's say US and Sweden have to play each other in the semifinal, so Canada gets the other team and US wins, so it's a US-Canada gold medal game like we had said, but Sweden's there to possibly get the bronze, and that means that Emil Andre's getting a medal too. It didn't work out that way, but two of the Flyers prospects do get the gold medal, and that was a really cool way. Like, watching that gold medal game felt like start of season vibes. Like, it felt like preseason for the rest of us. Like, get hyped up for a game and what it feels like to have an emotional reaction to a game again.
Things are starting to buzz, and they'll definitely pick up here over the next couple of days before Wednesday.
Yep.
Before we get out of here, I did actually want to make an announcement about Wednesday. If you've made it this far in the podcast, thank you very much. We will also be tweeting about this on our Twitter at YWT Podcast. Kevin is going to be doing pregame things, and we're not exactly sure the forms that's going to take yet. We'll secure that up as we get a little closer here. But I will be jumping on live at our YouTube channel again, in YWT Podcast on YouTube channel, or on YouTube rather. I will be jumping on there after every game. I will be doing a game recap, and if people come hang out in the live stream, I'll hang out for as long as people are hanging out. That'll start Wednesday. I plan on doing that after every game, and we'll kind of see how things go. And Kevin, was there anything you wanted to announce here?
Well, I'll announce. I might be able to go into a little more detail on what I have planned for the previews. At least it'll probably look a little similar to what you're watching on YouTube. It'll be included in my writings as well. So if I'm going to write previews for 97.3 ESPN or do it for Sports Talk Philly, then I will share those there as well, just as a way for me to put it out there in video form. I've kind of been, you know, for people who follow us over at Flyerdelphia, then you know about the graphics in game. As many that can be done to this point are done for goals. Okay. Hopefully, I don't know if this is going to be the case. I would love to find out that there are pictures from tonight's scrimmage. so that I can get a couple more of these guys done, because Joel Farabee has a new number, so I need a new picture of him.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm trying to, like, here's the thing. Unfortunately, with the graphics, I'm trying to do all the goals with them wearing the home orange jerseys. So since not everybody's wearing home orange, I can't really do that. But I needed a new picture of Joel Farabee. I needed a new picture of Sam Moran. I needed a picture in the event that he's actually going to play at some point, of Andy Andrioff. I need a picture of, a good picture of Igor Zamula, probably.
Okay,
and I'm holding out for a few others, but most of the team is done. That's a good part. And then I also have a couple of other fun graphics I just kind of was playing around with that are going to possibly be in these preview things. So, you'll have to just tune in to take a look. I will not hold out on Kyle and the rest of the guys with the YWT. I'll share it in the group afterwards to show you kind of what I've been working on. But
we'll make sure to retweet as much as we can from our Twitter at YWT Podcast. If you want to get it. If you want to get it from the source, you can follow Kevin at Kevin_.
Well, you're not going to find the graphics there. If you want to get the graphics, you're going to follow at Flyerdelphia for that. But
sure. But if you want to get the information from the source,
and I'll be let's just wait for people who. Well, I don't know how many people are listening to it right away, but I'll be active during the scrimmage for Sunday. I will definitely be active once Wednesday hits. We'll see about there's a lot of other things still up in the air with how my coverage is going to go, but I can at least tell you about the video thing with, let's do a couple preview videos, let's have some fun with it and kind of go from there. And one more thing from me for this week, if you really want to hear some more of me, not that if the last hour and a half hasn't been enough, then I am also going to be making a special appearance on the O&B Puckcast.
Okay.
With a few of the guys over there, and being part of their season preview episode. They're recording on Tuesday. I don't know exactly when the episode drops after the recording happens or whenever, but
sometime before the first game.
It won't be long. I think they realistically record and then get it up there like right after it's done. I know that we're planning to record somewhere in the early evening, somewhere around 6:30. So I would expect a Tuesday night, Wednesday morning ish, and I'm part of this. And I know a lot of people who have been on it before. We've had some similar guests before, like Kyle had Jason Martinez on here once. They've had him before, I believe, and there's a handful of others, but it's my first time making an appearance on there, and hopefully it goes well and it's not my last. But
and when that episode goes live, you'll certainly tweet about it at Kevin_Durso. Again, if you wanted to catch those graphics, you can follow at Flyerdelphia during games, as well as kind of live tweeting at games and stuff like that. Kevin's on top of that over at Sports Talk Philly, which is also where you can find this podcast, sportstalkphilly.com. In addition to everywhere else, Apple, Podbean, iTunes, Google Podcasts, you know the drill by now. We are on YouTube at YWT at YWT Podcast. You search us over there, we'll pop up. You know the drill. I don't think we have the custom URL yet, but we'll get it one day. It's fine. And the next time we talk, the Philadelphia Flyers will theoretically have games under their belt. So
they will have played 2 games by the next time we talk.
That is very, very exciting. And until then, we'll see you later.